Good morning, Chairman Enzi and other members of the Senate Committee on the Budget. We are here today to speak to you about President Trump's proposed plan to reduce the Department of Housing and Urban Development's budget by $6 billion. Introduced to our country earlier this year, this budget cut will be detrimental to one of our nation's most vulnerable populations, the homeless and those living within low-income households. While Ben Carson, Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, has stated that the President's plan is fiscally responsible and will help to incentivize those who are able to work, there is a failure to recognize the fact that this plan will negatively impact 1.8 billion people who are currently receiving public housing assistance. Not only will $1.3 billion be cut from public housing funds, but budgets for public housing authorities that provide shelter and subsidized housing for those in need will be reduced by $600 million. Furthermore, by drastically cutting funds to direct rental assistance programs which support Section 8 housing as well as housing vouchers for homeless veterans, thousands of people will be left without homes as they simply cannot afford the cost of living. Fox News has reported that Mick Mulvaney, director of the Office of Management and Budget, believes such budget cuts are moral. Mulvaney has stated that these budget cuts have been proposed partly in order to get individuals off of federal assistance and back in charge of their own lives. However, we ask you to evaluate the validity of this statement, as people in need of these programs face several barriers in obtaining employment. We also ask you to remind yourselves of one of our country's most important values, generosity and consideration. If the President's proposed plan passes, then we as a country are failing to reflect this core value. Programs such as the Community Development Block Grant work to fund local efforts to prevent homelessness and thus work to reflect this core value. However, as NBC News explains, this plan would eliminate this program and in turn devastate the lives of thousands of individuals who rely on these programs to assist them in waking up another day. We are coming to you with the most sincere and deepest hope that you will recognize the injurious effects this proposed plan will have on our nation. Recent reports show that over 500,000 individuals are currently homeless, living on the streets, in cars, or wherever else they can manage to find shelter. Perhaps most striking is the fact that of this group, approximately 141,177 of these individuals are children. The President has repeatedly stated that he aims to make America great again. However, this plan will not make America great again. Instead, it will cause America to abandon its values and turn a blind eye to women, men, mothers, fathers, and children in need. Please, provide a voice to those who are not able to speak for themselves by voting against this proposed plan. Thank you.
The Trump administration proposed plan will directly affect funds for public housing, community development grants, tenant-based rental assistance, homeless assistance grants, and other groups and agencies who receive money from the government to support housing. This cut will affect over 1 billion people who are currently receiving help from public assistance and will also affect those who are receiving completely no help at all by making it less likely for them to receive help due to this cut. The Trump administration also wants to eliminate the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, a small agency that works to coordinate the efforts of 19 federal agencies that help in reducing homelessness. I currently work for Lucas Metropolitan Housing Authority, also known as LMHA, who provides public housing assistance here in Toledo, which is funded by HUD. The buildings these individuals are asked to live in are bug-infested, dirty, not well kept, has a lot of gang activity and drug involvement. The living arrangements in these buildings are so bad, people living here may as well be living on the street. LMHA do not have enough funds to keep up with all the building work. They do not have enough money to provide extra assistance to tenants to ensure their safety in these buildings. They literally only have enough money to provide a building for residents to live in so they won't have to live outside. Trump administration taking money from these organizations will just increase the problem and ultimately result in an increase in homelessness. We think it is appalling the government reasoning behind reducing the HUD is so that they can increase the defense budget. Budget that wouldn't even need to be increased if the Trump administration knew how to better resolve conflicts with other countries. The government wants to take money used to help our communities so that they can go and destroy even more communities and more. The National Association of Social Workers is deeply disappointed with this budget cut that clearly reflects the disregard for maintaining a social safety net and strengthening the fabric of our nation's health and environment.
When President Reagan took office in 1981, HUD was the main federal agency of subsidized housing for the poor and working class. In 1981, HUD's budget was $32 billion. By 1988, the budget was $7.5 billion. During Reagan's era, the number of people living beneath the federal poverty line rose from 24 million to 32 million. An explosion of homelessness occurred during that time. President Reagan took no blame for what was happening to the homeless. He believed the homeless chose this way of life. Unfortunately, in our society, we tend to justify homelessness by presuming hostility and laziness in homeless individuals. We often have the misconception that we worked hard to get where we are, and these homeless people are not trying. We fail to realize these folks are not always homeless by choice. There are many contributing factors to why people become homeless. For instance, loss of unemployment, poor education, drugs, mental illness, and foreclosure. During the foreclosure crisis, roughly 7 million Americans lost their homes. Many of these people stayed with families and friends. A large number stayed at emergency shelters or lived on the street. Regardless of how they became homeless, as human beings, it is our moral obligation and duty to take care of each other and protect the underprivileged. The trauma of becoming homeless with all the related confusion, shame, and fear is damaging to one's physical and mental psyche. When we start cutting funding for emergency shelters, public housing, and grant vouchers, then what is left? As a nation, how can we justify taking money away from people that need food and shelter? From children, veterans, families, how do we justify these actions? I ask you. We are here today on behalf of the homeless that cannot represent themselves, and we hope with your actions and the actions of this committee, you will reconsider this proposed $6 billion budget cut. Thank you.